Hi everyone, Kathy Beltran with Sacred Dance with Trance. I am super excited to have fellow member Trance Medium Ray Edwards from the UK with us today. I've been waiting to get Ray in, and between both of our schedules and then people catching colds, oh, it was horrific. But I finally have him, and I'm so grateful to him. So everybody, welcome Ray Edwards.
Thank you, Kathy. It's very kind of you. I feel, as I said to you earlier, I feel very humbled by the whole process. So I just hope something I say can be of help to somebody.
Every single guest says that. And I already know because it's spirit guided. And anybody that does these interviews, I mean, the names come in, how it comes in, and then they pop back in. And it's just what spirit wants. That's what I feel. But I do have to tell a little bit of a story about Ray. So, when I first opened the group, I can't even remember when it was. Maybe it was July. Anyway, I believe in August. I think it was sometime in August. Ray, who does a lot of inspired poetry, inspired writing. Actually, I should have also said that. Ray is also known as an inspired writer. He posted the most beautiful writing, the most beautiful poem, and it was actually connected to the group and what I decided to name the group when I first opened it. And so I would love if Ray, if you could read that in your beautiful accent to everybody.
Thank you, Kathy. I should say, so that everybody knows, we've never had any contact before this interview.
Yes.
And before I joined the group. And this poem that I wrote was written in 2012. Mm-hmm. So it was meant for the two to come together, I guess.
Absolutely.
But it's called Dance of Trance. Forgive me if I'm intimate. It's real, not just implied. I'm just a spirit person, and I'd like to step inside. Set aside your consciousness and let us take a chance. Together we can work a while and dance the dance of trance.
Oh my God. Just beautiful. And the way you said it with your accent, I love it. When I first read that, I was like floored. I mean, I shared it, and I still share it. It's how I felt when I first named the group. And I just thought, oh my God, when I saw your poem, it was just beautiful. And if you're lucky to be one of Ray's friends, you will know that he posts these inspired writings all the time. And they're so meaningful, just beautiful. And I know also that Ray also has some books. He's also working on getting them, digitalized or?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah. And so hopefully there'll be more information about that to come. And I know I'm getting some in the mail. So when I get that, I'm going to post that about that. So I'm super excited. But I'm so grateful to have Ray have you on here today because I love for members to connect and share their story. And like you said, when you first said, hopefully there's something that I can say that's going to help somebody. And I'm telling you now, it's absolutely going to, because I have a lot of people that are interested also in inspired writing as well. So usually what I like to start out with is asking you how your journey started. And that would be question number one.
Okay. So shall I carry on? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, in my life, I've been a member of a number of different churches from when I was quite young, and I remember going to Sunday school when I was very young. I seem to remember causing trouble there as well, so nothing much changed. I didn't find one church that fitted with me until I found the Spiritualist Church in 1999. My partner at the time liked to try out new things and found an advert for a meeting of a local Spiritualist church, and we went along. I liked the philosophy, the readings and the messages, and in particular the friendly energy I felt there, so I started to go regularly, and I kept up the attendances at a different church when I moved house in 2001. I had been reading quite a lot of spiritual books, people like Betty Shine, Doris Stokes, Harry Edwards, Richard Bach, Howard Cello and others, when in 2000 I was diagnosed with prostate cancer. And they eventually had to have a major operation to have it removed. Prior to the operation, I contacted everyone I could find who did spiritual healing, including Betty Shine, who wrote to me to confirm that I was on her list, and I felt very privileged for that. The operation was successful, fortunately, and I could feel the amazing healing energy around me, which helped me to recover really quickly afterwards. When I was over the operation, I was resolved to follow the spiritual path more actively, really to give something back for the healing that I'd received. Life events got in the way for a while, but I eventually started to get more involved in 2004 when I met a new partner. In 2005, I was led to join a weekly development group through the church I attended in Crockthorne, one of the local villages. When my partner and I were fortunate enough to find a wonderful trance medium healer and teacher called Robert Levesque and his wife Judy, who is also a gifted sound healer and trance medium. In that group, we were taught many things and led to develop our own spiritual gifts. We were encouraged to try all aspects of mediumship, including trance and physical. And although I was never drawn particularly to sit for physical myself, I was happy to sit for others who were doing so. I should say that when I first started that group, I felt very much the odd one out because people around me, for the most part, were already doing things on their spiritual pathway. And it was, I think, about 6 weeks before I opened my mouth because I was frightened of it appearing a fool and all of that. But I stuck the course, and it turned out to be very beneficial. At the circle that I was just describing, we were encouraged to keep a spiritual journal, and I used this at every meeting and found myself drawn to doodle and to draw simple pictures and write down any inspired thoughts. I started to find myself writing bits of poetry inspired by pictures, things I'd seen, or as a result of things I'd heard in the circle, or ideas from meditations. I was also known for raising a chuckle or two and the odd eyebrow, I could say. In 2006, I attended a spiritual development course near Scarborough, where I had my first experience of watching deep trance mediumship, and sat in a very large group for meditations every day. I think there were about 50 people there, early in the mornings. The energy generated in those meditations was very palpable, and I found myself, it was beyond anything I'd ever experienced. And I found myself being required to write down poetry by my inspirers, who had now drawn very close. This was the opening of the floodgates, as I continued to be inspired to write poetry in an altered state every time I sat, and at other times also. I found I would be meditating, then words would come into my head, and I had to dip out of the meditation to write something down, and then go back into the meditation again. So I guess I was a bit dippy even then. But the point was, I found I had to come out of the meditation, because if I didn't write it down at the time, it was gone. So this is why I knew it wasn't something that was coming from me. It wasn't long after that before I started to receive poetry at any time, even when I was driving the car. So I started to carry a digital voice recorder, as I wouldn't remember the words unless I recorded them at the time. I could be inspired by anything. Watching people, shop windows, conversations around me, car registration plates, angel cards, objects I found myself drawn to look at closely, or just thoughts in my head which seemed to take root. Once it started, it was almost like a dictation in real time. I wouldn't know what was coming, I just had to keep writing or recording. So that's pretty much how it all started really.
Wow. Yeah, for it to just happen like anywhere, like wherever you are, it just starts coming.
Yes, I could be doing anything during the day, or night if it happened. There are times when I've gone to bed at night, switched the light off, and suddenly something will come into my mind, and I've got to switch the light back on again and write it down. Other time, there's no particular, I don't set aside a time to do it, it just happens.
Well, thank goodness for the digital recorder,
Absolutely. Wonderful invention.
Oh my goodness. So how long would you say that things started happening? I mean, how long have you been developing? Or, I don't even know if it's really developing. It's just happening to you and it's automatic. How long has this been going on?
Well, if you start from when I first started going to spiritualist churches, it would be about 18 years, I guess. If you work from when I started at Development Circle, it would be about 12 years. But as I look back on my life, I can see that the whole journey since early adulthood has been one of development of my beliefs, because I've bounced around quite a lot of different churches and faiths and religions until I came across spiritualism. When I was in my early 20s, I became involved in the martial arts, and I was to continue in that for about 20 years. And this made me want to explore the religions and philosophies of the East, and I studied Zen, Buddhism, Confucianism, Taoism, and various forms of meditation. I also started to do regular Kung Fu-based exercises, which I still do, and which have helped me with my self-discipline and my mindfulness. I was particularly drawn to the philosophy of Taoism and the book The Way of Life by Lao Tzu, which has some wonderful teachings. I mean, it's 3,000 years old, but it's just as applicable today. This fitted with the martial arts by its link with the Shaolin temples, which came very much to the fore with the TV series Kung Fu, starring David Carradine, which you may have come across. I found that the philosophy there fitted so well with my own beliefs and what I've developed in my time in the spiritualist movement. I still watch the Kung Fu DVDs to refresh my memories of the wonderful philosophy expounded there. I believe the emphasis on meditation, self-discipline, lack of ego is what's given me a good foundation for my spiritual journey as it is further unfolded. Having said all of this, the longer I live, the more I realise that as a spirit in a human body, the whole of our lives here is the spiritual journey. As we learn more from our spiritual awakening, it's incumbent upon us to learn the spiritual lessons from our human encounters and to carry our spiritual values, especially love, respect and honour, into everyday life. Our mission here is to help others as well as to progress our own souls. That's my opinion.
Hey, I'm right there with you. You know, I think that the writing, the inspired writing that you do, the poems that come through you, it's not just regular poems. I mean, you read it, it makes you think about you. It makes you think about, I mean, it's like there's lessons, there's, I don't know, I just love everything that you write. And you'll know because I'm always doing a big old heart, because anything I read from you, it's like it makes me go back. It makes me think of choices, of looking at something differently, and definitely, you know, no ego involved, like pushing that out. So I'm just so glad that Spirit is using you this way, because the work that you do is beautiful. It's beautiful.
Well, I tend to find that when something gets my attention, it's the emotion I feel first, not the words. So I get a feeling about something, and then the words will start to come. So I never know what the words are going to be or what the subject is going to be.
Well, I love it, Ray. You know I love it. So, like I said, I cannot wait to get your books. Were you... I'm trying to think now here. On your journey, when you first started, did you already know about trance? Did you know what that was?
I mean, I was fortunate enough in the first development circle I sat in, and this was a 10-week course that lasted for 7 years.
Wow.
But the wonderful medium Robert, who led the circle, was a very, very experienced trance medium, and he on occasion would demonstrate his trance mediumship, and then he coaxed us into trying ourselves, and it was quite a long time before I felt any kind of confidence to even try it. But he was very good at coaxing, and so yes, I like the idea that I like the philosophy that came with it particularly.
Yeah, I love the philosophy. I love listening and reading all about that stuff. So I encourage members to post anything they get, or any sites and information, so others can connect with that information as well. So we are now at question number 4, I believe.
Okay.
And that would be about the trance and active and passive states.
That's a sort of either-or question, and I have to say that my belief in this is that it is both active and passive, because the medium has to actively prepare themselves for sitting for trance by clearing their mind, setting aside regular times for sitting, and most importantly, by setting their intent to sit for trance. Once this has been done, and there is a feeling that you recognise of love and closeness of your guide, then the medium has to step back and allow the guide to come forward to speak. My understanding is that trance is teamwork. I've heard it described as the medium being the gateway, not just the messenger. It is a blending process to me. I also believe that there are different levels of trance, from what I would describe as light trance, where it's probably 95% you, 5% them, right through to very deep trance, where it's 5% you and 95% them. And I have seen some marvellous results at all levels. I've been very lucky to see quite a number of different trance movements. For me, the quality of trance doesn't rely on the apparent depth involved, but the quality of what's brought forward. It's also necessary to remember that the guides themselves may not all have the capability to join in a deep trance state, as they are themselves developing in the spirit world. To me, it's important not to have expectations, but to concentrate on sincere intent and the exchange of true spiritual love. Ego should not play any part in trance sitting, either before or afterwards. This is why many guides do not wish to give their identities.
I like how you said that. The guides are also developing.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, we tend to think of them as all-seeing, all-knowing.
Yeah.
Wise cat, and they're not. They're all developing the same as well.
Developing at the same time. So cool. Is there an area of trance that you're more interested in developing? Trance feeling, physical?
I think the aspects, it's like everything, we go on developing until the day we go back to schools anyway. But I mean, at the moment, the things that appeal to most are trance healing and trance philosophy. And the philosophy obviously usually delivered by trance speaking. But I also believe that inspired writing is done in an altered state as an aspect of trance. This is something which I've experienced myself. As our trance communicators may well change several times during our earthly life, and this again is something that everybody realises, they don't always stay the same. We will always have the opportunity to be doing something new.
So so our guides, we might have different inspirers or controls come in throughout the entire development.
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay. Now, this is a question that we've been posting a lot in the groups, a lot of information on sitting in the power. Some people call it sitting in the power. You know, I always like to say this because some members, and it depends on where they live, they might just call it meditation. I like sitting in the power. I like to use that term. What is your interpretation of sitting in the power?
Yes, I thought about this quite a bit in terms of how I feel about it, and I heard the expression a lot, and I've heard a number of the other mediums talk about it. To me, I prefer to see it as sitting in the energy of loving. For me, the word power implies a desire to exert a conscious influence or control over the outcome. I understand that others may be able to do this without ego, but for me, I feel it more as a merging or a blending process. When I sit always with loving intent and an open mind in the hope of working with spirit to the best of our joint abilities. To me, it's a joining of my human consciousness with the universal consciousness as brought forward by those in spirit. I may not even be aware of what is being worked on or achieved in the process of my sitting, but I am content to sit and to send my love forwards. That's the way I sit.
I like how you said that. It's beautiful. Do you feel that it is important to do this while developing?
I would say that if you wish to develop your potential sitting for spiritual for development. It's important, yes, to sit, because you need to understand how you feel as a person, and not just to pick up on what other people you may sit with, what their understanding is. And it's also important to build up that energy connection with your guides and your aspirers. And this may not be something which is entirely conscious to you, but often when you sit, you may not be getting anything that you particularly notice, but a lot of work could be going on in the background to bring those connections together in a way where they blend properly. And you know, we live in a physical world with a human consciousness as well as a spiritual consciousness. In order to develop the skill of quieting the conscious monkey brain, for me, and I've heard others say the same, I need a lot of practice. You know, I'm not, I'm a bit of a plodder. I have to keep going at things. Ideally, I try to sit every day if I can, even if it's only 15 or 20 minutes. Ideally, I would sit for about an hour a day, most days. Whilst we're sitting for development, it's my view that regular sitting is essential. How many times the ego will step in and say, you don't need to do that, or let's do something more important or more interesting. You asked earlier about active versus passive. It's my view that the regular sitting is a part of the active work done by the medium. Once we establish this as part of our routine and the brain is programmed to accept it, then there is less noise from the egoic mind. So it makes easier the process of sitting for development, particularly in a group.
One of the things that I've noticed that with all the guests is that they do say that they sit, you know, if not every day, they do, you know, it's important for them. And that shows like that dedication, that and the persistence to be there and be of service. So I think it's always interesting when the guests say that, yes, no, this is something I do. You know, if it's not 15 minutes, an hour. And most people say it's up to an hour to do it, if they're able to. So I think that is always a good question for me to ask.
In a sense, it's a little bit like learning a foreign language. You wouldn't just go to a group once a week and then try to learn French by just doing it that once a week. You will have to keep practicing and practicing until you're familiar with the basics and felt comfortable with it before you could sit and actually try and talk to people in that language. And it's, for me, it's very much the same with spiritual connection.
Beautiful. Do you feel that people could have an automatic trance experience, involuntary, but why would this happen without somebody, you know, knowing about it or trying to develop it?
Okay. Right. Well, it's my belief that trance communicators like us, as I said a few minutes ago, vary considerably in their level of development. I have heard of such happenings as you've described there, and I can quite understand that if a well-developed trance guide or communicator in spirit is drawn to somebody's energy, knowing that they have an as yet undeveloped ability or expressed desire to work with spirit, then trance may be brought forward. If this happens, then it would be wise for the person who experiences this to seek the help of an experienced and sincere development circle or a trance medium to help them understand what is happening and to engage in training which will help them develop with their gift without fear or anxiety, because it can be a bit scary if this happens and you know anything about it. They may not realise the effect from spirit that they will have on the person concerned that they are working with, even if they have been properly prepared.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. We are actually now on question number 10. And we're doing this because I have a lot of questions. And if I don't say that number, I might mess up somewhere up in here as well. Are you currently sitting for development of physical circle? And do you notice that in the group that I just posted something about online circles as well? So I also want to include either physical circle, online circle, or in person. I don't know if you just said that, but.
Okay. So yes, I'm sitting in a development circle in which trance is one aspect. There is no particular emphasis on physical at the moment. I do sit on my own each day, but I've never tried to sit with anyone online yet. I find that quite an interesting development, to be honest, because at the lowest common denominator, everything is energy, as it's been proved in science. So there is absolutely no reason why it shouldn't work online, although I guess, it's going to feel different to actually sitting in person with groups. I can fully understand that those who've got no development facilities near them would wish to sit with somebody online, and I'd be very interested to have some feedback on how. But I noticed you put a post recently about it. So.
I will let you know as my experiment, goes further. I'll let you know on that one.
I mean, as far as my inspired writing goes, I'm fortunate that this can happen at any stage of the day without any need for me to sit specifically for it to happen. I do find that once I start to write, I go into an altered state while it's happening, and that can be a very short period of time. I'm guided to listen or receive the words which I've written down, often having to stop whatever else it is I'm doing at the time. So, yes.
So when you're doing the inspired writing, when it comes to you, and now you have your digital recorder, before you said that you would go in and then you'd have to come out, write it, go back in.
That's when yes, but if I'm sitting in a group doing a meditation and the inspiration comes during the meditation, that would be the process. During the day, there is no particular process, it just happens. I tend to carry around with me a notebook and a pen. As I said before, if I don't write things down when they first come to me, often they've gone.
Wow.
I mean, I've made the mistake before now of getting something just as I'm going to sleep, thinking I'll write that down in the morning, and in the morning it's just not there.
Gone. Wow. Oh my goodness. What do you feel, or do you receive guidance from spirit while you're developing for your circle, for yourself?
Yes. Whenever I've been blessed with the opportunity to sit in or to facilitate a development circle, I found that spirit will guide what is to be done. I used to go to a lot of trouble to try and plan things when I was facilitating circle, and it all went out the window because you got into the evening and it all changed. I've certainly found that spirit will guide what's to be done. Sometimes even changing things as the sitting progresses, so they might start on one tack and then shift. My understanding of the reason for this is that spirit can see the needs of all the individual sitters, and they would wish to influence proceedings to bring the best development experience to everybody present. The guidance can also be brought forward in what comes from individual sitters. And for me, it's important that I'm seen very much as a facilitator and not a teacher. I would have no wish to let my ego get in the way of spirit, in what spirits see as being in the best interest of the whole circle, although it is necessary that someone keeps the train on the tracks at times.
Oh my goodness. Now this is an interesting question because, as I'm doing the interviews and as I'm learning, I'm not, I always tell everybody that they think just because I'm doing these interviews that I know what I'm talking about. I really don't. I mean, I'm learning as I go, and I learn from each interview, every person I talk to, the posts. But I do get a question asked all the time, and it's messaged to me. And so I like to ask the guests their opinion on it, or just their, if they can explain the difference between sitting for physical and sitting for trance.
Okay. Well, it would be my view that not every medium is capable or intended to sit for physical. I don't understand in any depth the energetic processes which are required for the development of physical mediumship, but I do know that they are much more demanding on those on both sides of the veil. I've been fortunate to see Stuart Alexander, David Thompson, Bill Meadows demonstrate physical mediumship, and I know it's taken them many, many years to be able to achieve what they do. They also have had dedicated teams of people who've been prepared to sit for them and provide the energy necessary for the work on the human side to be developed in conjunction with what's being developed in the spirit side. This can take many years of dedicated, regular sitting, and I believe in Stuart's case it was around 15 years before they got results, the results that they're achieving. My understanding is that dedication, regularity, continuity of sitters is far more important when sitting for physical. It's also very important that the physical security of the developing medium is cared for in every way, as there are those unscrupulous people, unfortunately, who just want to prove that everyone is a fake and will do things such as switching lights on during a sitting or shouting, which will harm the medium when they're in a deep altered state. So, I think that in that sense, the sitting for physical is quite different for sitting for trance.
I'm glad that you explained it that way because, like I said, the questions that people have, why do you need people to sit for you or have that a large amount of people or just even like 4 people? Why do you need sitters? That was one of the questions. Can't you develop this on your own? Do you have to have somebody present? And so I think that's like one of my biggest questions ever. It's, can you develop trance on your own?
I think there's absolutely nothing to stop you developing trance on your own. I think it's in a way a little bit of a handicap if you do it on your own, because depending on the depth of trance you go into, and I know people who've done trance and they'll set a voice recorder before they as they start sitting and record wherever happens that way. But I think depending on the person concerned and their level of spiritual awareness, I think it would be difficult to achieve as much sitting with as you can sitting with somebody else or a group, as you're not getting any observations from the other people, you're not getting the feedback. And particularly if they have some experience of spiritual development themselves, it's very valuable to get some feedback on what's been said or what's been seen, or, because you can get trance with transfiguration taking place. And you're not going to be aware of this necessarily if you're sitting on your own. So, but it's like, I think it was Sean Harvey who said, if you can't get anyone else, then sit with your mum. You sit. Yeah. If you want to sit, then you sit.
We are now at question number 15. Can you share any experience of a phenomena or that you have with your circle, whether that's trance speaking, trance healing, anything like that?
I think I've probably been quite fortunate in the people I've sat with. I've witnessed quite a lot of trance speaking, and I've been lucky to have some trance speaking come through myself. And although I tend to be at probably the shallow end, I don't go terrifically deep, but I can usually hear what's being said, although I wouldn't remember it afterwards. I've had a variety of communicators, ranging from philosophers to humorous ones. I had a court jester once who used to come and lift the energy of the circle. I've also had inspired poetry in trance, which is an interesting thing, because if somebody else didn't write it down or record it, it's gone. But I think the most unexpected experience I had was I had in a meditation, I had a Japanese soldier communicator come through. And this chap, he was a captain, and he'd taken part in the massacre in Singapore during World War II. And he was stuck because of his remorse for what he'd done. Once passing over, he realised that he shouldn't have done what he did. I mean, fortunately, the next time we sat for a trance healing, he came through again. And I was sitting with an experienced group who were able to do a rescue, and he was then able to move on into the light. So, yes, that was the most unexpected. But I was physically, I felt my whole body shrinking and being held absolutely rigid because of trying to fit with his characteristics.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that would have, thank goodness you had a bunch of different people that knew what was happening.
Yes.
And you could assist and help in that way,
And this is one of the other aspects I think of sitting with a group, is that you can never be absolutely certain who's going to turn up once you go into that altered state. And to have somebody else there is just helpful, particularly if they have some level of experience. Well, people might be quite frightened if they didn't have some support there, I think.
Oh, yeah. Wow. So one of the questions I like to ask is, I've actually sat in a cabinet just to experience the energy. And to me, it's some strong energy in a cabinet. Is a cabinet necessary for physical mediumship? And have you experienced sitting in a cabinet?
Yeah, I do believe that for some people it does help to concentrate the energy in a way that facilitates phenomena. I've also heard and read of those who don't require a cabinet, and there's some historical mediums, physical mediums, who seem to be able to achieve amazing results without a cabinet. My understanding is that those who are working on the spirit side of life vary in their abilities in similar ways to us on this side. If they're very experienced teams working on both sides, then it may be less important to use the cabinet. If the communication is good between the two teams, I have no doubt that the spirit team will make it clear if they think a cabinet will help proceedings or if it's unnecessary. Mm-hmm. So again, it can be very much identified from the spirit.
Awesome. How long after sitting in your circle did your group start to have, if you can remember, I know that most people have to go back in time and figure this out. How long in time did it take before you started to experience phenomena? I mean, I know with you, you're already doing the inspired writing, but was there a time for your circle?
When I first started sitting for development, it was probably about a year before trance was brought into a regular spot, because we had a lot of groundwork to cover on just ordinary development stuff. And in the years that followed, the development of trance speaking for myself took a while to build up, maybe another year or so. Although some people were much quicker and found it a more natural process. And this is, again, to do with the differences in the rates at which people make progress on these things. So yes, it was a slow build-up for me in that sense, because part of it, I think, because we're human, is a build-up of the confidence that it is actually a spiritual connection and not something you're just making up yourself.
And you know what? I like to ask that question because mostly everybody that answers says it's taken time. It's not something, they didn't start experiencing phenomena just like that. And I wanted to show people that you go in without no expectation. And sometimes it takes time to develop and experiencing this. So, giving up so early is probably not the best thing to do, So we are now at question number 19, and I'm going to reword this one a little bit because I usually say, what is an apport, and have you experienced either being in a session where this would come through?
I have sat in seances where there's been physical demonstrations. An apport, as I understand it, is something that appears in the room that wasn't there before. And I know, I've seen Kai Maregi on the videos that he's posted, and these remarkable things that appear out of their eyes.
I know.
But I've never been fortunate enough to see that, although I have heard other people talk about the production of feathers, crystals, papers with writing on.
Wow.
So yes, I've come across it, but never been fortunate enough to see it happen.
Yeah, me either. I just get to watch videos. That's all I get to do. How often does your circle meet? Most of the development circles I've sat in have met weekly and lasted for a couple of hours. There needs to be sufficient time to get yourself settled down, to do the work, and then to come out of it at the end. I personally believe that the weekly discipline is good for commitment on both sides, and it encourages the growth of the connections, both in strength and the quality of what's brought forward. At present, I facilitate a weekly circle which started last September. I sit for my own development when I can, although my usual circle has been disrupted due to some physical problems with the venue. I'm hoping that I will find an already a pattern in this new one. So, yes. I asked this one.
To answer your question, weekly I think is probably the most beneficial.
The most beneficial. When I ask this question, people want to know, as they're starting their own circles, they're creating their own circles, and some of them really have no idea what to do. Like they just sit. But some people mention that they, their circle would consist of playing music, doing a meditation, or singing? Is that anything that you do? Do you do any of those things in your circle?
I think this is very much, in a sense, down to the energy of the circle itself and the approach of the facilitator. The way I view the proceedings at a development circle, I'll just run through them. So we would do protection for the group at the outset. There would be an opening prayer. There would be a grounding exercise, a cleansing and further opening of the chakras. Bringing up protection, I always encourage people to get in the habit of bringing up their own personal protection, whatever is done for the group as a whole. Will be a quick roundup of how the spiritual week has been for people, see if there are any queries that they wish to raise, a relaxation exercise, and then we would set, having gone through the basics of that, we would set the intent for the evening, and this would very often be spirit-led as to what that would be. And then there'd be meditations, and it could be 1, 2, 3, depending on whatever's inspired at the time. Mm-hmm. And then shared feedback on meditation. And this is the other thing, is that quite important that people get the chance to talk about what they've experienced and to get views as to what that may mean for them, or what other people's interpretations of it is. And then thanks to the guides and everybody in spirit who's been working with us. And then towards the end, we would be sending out healing thoughts and prayers, having any final questions or answers, supplementing homework if there's any to be done, asking for protection for the chakras, and then a closing prayer. So that's generally.
Your entire, everything that you just said for your circle is actually something that we do in ours. So this is the first time I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, I do that, I do that, I do that. Yeah, so sounds wonderful. Now, I asked this one question, which we are now on number 22, because some people, when they first start a circle, they don't always have the right members. And so I ask, is harmony important between members of a circle?
I think quite a short answer to that is really, in my view, harmony is absolutely essential, because if you have any disruption in the energies between people, it makes spiritual development in the group very difficult, not impossible. Because you need a calmness, a blendness, a sincerity in there, and that's difficult to have if you've got people who just don't fit with each other.
And and now that we're talking about this, I thought of another question. Would like, say you're having a bad day, circle's coming on, you have circle tonight, you're having a bad day, you got bad news. Would that be a good reason not to attend circle, or should you be able to release all of that before circle?
I think probably the latter. You should be able to release it, and it depends again on levels of experience and how long you've been at it. But yes, the facility to detach from what's going on the human side and to actually calm yourself down, set aside. I had a notice that I used to put up on the outside of the circle doors, which was that when you come in, you leave outside your everyday life, your expectations, and your ego. And you need to be able to do that if you're going to sit seriously.
I think that's really good. I agree with you. We talk about energy at the circle. Is it important to build energy, build the power? I know you don't like to use that word in a development circle. Is it important to do that?
Yes, and I think whenever you sit on a regular basis, wherever you're sitting, and the energy of the group does build. As you say, I'm cautious about using the word count, and it's just my interpretation of it. I'm not saying,
oh yeah,
just something I choose not to use, that's it. I view sitting for development not so much a question of developing the power as helping all concerned to work towards their full spiritual potential in a loving environment. We're all individuals, and we'll have different gifts and abilities which can be brought out and help to flourish by sitting in a development circle. To me, the strength of the development circle is built up by the love the harmony, the acceptance, the trust, and the open-mindedness of its members. It takes time to achieve and it has to be nurtured. Once established, it creates the best possible environment for genuine and interactive involvement with the spirit guides, helpers, and teachers. The interaction between the earthly sitters and the spiritual team also needs to be nurtured and treated with great respect and humility. Once there is love and respect on both sides, the circle can proceed to further the spiritual development of all concerned on both sides of the barrier. But to me, people don't like to use the expression to be of service. But to me, there is a great importance to that when we're working with spirit.
Yeah, no, I love that. I do like that. So in the groups right now, there's people questioning how to create their own circle. Can anybody just create start their own circle to develop? Do they have to have a experienced medium there?
I think ideally, if anyone's starting their own circle, they should have had some experience of sitting in a circle previously with an experienced medium and to understand practices and the protocols involved. It's important they adopt a respectful and an open-minded approach and do not attempt to impose any aspects of ego, whilst at the same time ensuring there is a sensible and reasonably disciplined approach adopted by circle members. It should be clear what the circle is trying to achieve, and it should meet on a regular basis, which is acceptable to its members and which they can commit to. Having said this, if there's no facility available to gain experience locally, then there are spiritual books written by experienced mediums which give guidance on running circles. And there's also guidance now available online, as was mentioned earlier. It may be that you can get an established medium to come and attend for a few meetings in order to just get the circle off the ground on the right basis. But the simple answer is yes, anyone can start their own circle, providing they have the appropriate knowledge, respect, and commitment.
I know that you might have answered this a little bit, and what the circle consists of. But I like to go over this one because some members have fears. And so when you set an intention or protection or prayer before you start a circle or even before you start your development, how important is that? That somebody that has fear?
I mean, certainly in my view, I think that these are all very important aspects for sitting for development. The development that's sought should be for the enhancement of soul learning and progression, both for yourself and for others. I'm aware that some seek to develop mediumship with a view to being platform mediums and to be able to do readings from which they can earn a living. I understand that mediums have to be able to pay bills like anybody else. But if the prime focus of their development is on making money, to me, this is not the right intent. That may not sit comfortably with some people, but that's my view. The development of mediumistic gifts and abilities should embrace humility, unconditional love, and the wish to be of service, both with spirit and with other seekers on the spiritual path. There are those who believe that no harm can come to those on the spiritual development path, or those who work as healers. My understanding is that there are dangers to face on the spiritual path from dark energies and entities, and that protection is actually very important.
Agree. I absolutely agree with you on that. So this is number 26 is an interesting way I wrote this question because actually I got that from a member. So how do you know you're ready to blend with spirit or that you've arrived in that zone?
Okay. Again, from my own perspective, I believe that we are spirit beings in a physical body. So in a sense, we're always in a state of blending. I also believe that part of our soul consciousness, our higher self, remains in spirit when we incarnate. This is where our feelings of conscience arise from. Having said that, in order to access the assistance of our guides, angels, teachers and helpers, we need to have respectful and honest intent to call upon them, to help us on our earthly path of soul development. We prepare ourselves by quieting the monkey brain, stop throwing at bananas, and setting aside some dedicated time for that connection. Our intuition and gut feelings help us to know when a more focused blending is appropriate and called for. Arriving in the zones, an interesting expression, but I think I understand what's meant. For me, it would be that feeling that the state of peace, joy, love, and openness, tinged with the wonderful sensation of connection with something so much greater than ourselves, but which is motivated to extend our own experiences of love and togetherness for the benefit of all soul development, ours and others too. And it's very much getting beyond this idea that it's all about us, and actually it's about everybody, because we're all connected, we're all one.
Yeah, I think that as you're speaking, you mentioned earlier something about like the higher self is on the other side. So when you say certain things here, I'm like, oh, Ray's kind of like me. I'm thinking the same thing here. I think that you have went through a lot of a spiritual journey. Like you have these very beautiful beliefs. And I really think that a lot of members have the same beliefs. But everything that you talk about is in service. Everything that you do to be of service to spirit in some way is just like to be a clear channel. I think that's you. That's what you do. It's I mean, I can see, especially in your writing, everything that you post. It's, and I'm never going to stop saying it's beautiful, Ray. I just wish we had more time where we could just sit there and read all these poems. And write. Like I said, I can't wait to get the books. This is very interesting. When I first started researching, I got all this information that you had to give permission for spirit to blend with you, especially when you're doing trance. Do you find that to be the case? Did you give permission, or was this just automatic?
Okay, well, given the earlier question you asked about involuntary experience of trance, I think the best way I can answer this is to say that I believe a soul on a conscious spiritual pathway of development would be drawn to sit for trance, if that's right for their development. Mm-hmm. In this case, they would overtly give permission and set their intent. Where the occurrence of trance appears initially in an apparently involuntary manner, it would be my belief that permission would have to be given at a soul level, even if this was not obvious to the person themselves when it occurred. I cannot, in all honesty, believe that spirit would step in with trance communication against the express will of the person concerned. Their actions are driven by love and their desire to help us. After all, we're all part of the great universal consciousness, and what we do to another, we do to ourselves.
I agree, because I think that on a soul level, that most people that are even having these automatic trance experiences, even though they might not have set out to do that, they agreed on a soul level to experience that or be of service in that way. So
that would be an idea, yes.
Absolutely. So number 28. Okay. A trance control. Like I wouldn't, in the beginning, I never called it a control. I had no idea what people were talking about when they said control. I would just say guide or spirit or something like that. What is a trance control or guide to you?
Like with a lot of these things, the words are just a label, really. My understanding of a trance control is a spirit guide who's familiar both with our own energy signatures and with those of the spirit communicators who wish to work with us. They will try to make the best match of energies to avoid difficulties on either side and to allow the optimum result from the teamwork. They do not so much control us as they try to control the process. It's a bit like a spiritual dating agency, I think that's the right thing.
Oh my goodness. Okay, now this is going to be an interesting question because most people have to sit back and really remember. in the beginning, when guides would come in, or controls would come in, or people that were coming all the time, or people, I'm sorry, spirit. Did you notice like each one had an energy signature or a calling card that you knew once you felt it, you already knew who it was?
Okay. Again, as you see, I have a little problem with the word control, but my belief is that we have a gatekeeper who's with us for our current human incarnation. And they try to ensure that those in spirit who wish to contact us have the right motive and intent. And they try to filter out any mischief makers. So the gatekeeper's role is absolutely essential. And the message today is never fire your gatekeeper, because they're doing an important. I also believe that we have a main teaching guide who will try to steer our efforts in the direction of what experiences are most benefiting closest to our soul's mission in this earthly incarnation. However, we cannot be forced to act against our will, so in that sense there is no control. I'm aware that some mediums are able to identify who is communicating with them, either audibly through clairaudience or visibly clairvoyance, and they know names, backgrounds, personalities. As my prime ability tends to be clairsentience, I recognise the feeling of the guides coming around me, but not necessarily the individual natures of those concerned. If I become aware of a spiritual communicator who didn't feel right, I would break off contact and tell them to withdraw. And you are entirely within your free will and capabilities to do this. The contact from spirit should always be positive, loving, educational, and supportive. In a general sense, this is to me the energy signature. What I find most significant is that feeling of great love and peace. And if that's absent, then I would feel it didn't feel right.
Okay.
But it doesn't worry me so much who it is as getting the right feeling and getting the right communication through.
That feeling, that good feeling that comes through. Okay. Upon getting to know your team, whether that be your gatekeeper or your main teaching guide, and you found out the name, just say you got the name and you know that information. Did most of this information come from you from feeling, or from the sitters, from the circle members validating the information?
Both, really, I think. I, without being too specific, I should say that my gatekeeper is not a human identity. They are an animal identity. And this is the way they appear to me, which is partly to do with the strength of their character and partly to do with something that's important to me in this incarnation as a human being. So I've lost it, Kathy. What was the question?
I know. I'm sitting here like, wow, an animal gatekeeper. But most people will say that you shouldn't research your control or your guides. Like that information should come from them alone, or from your.
Yeah. I think yes. I mean, when you're, and again, it depends on your mediumistic abilities, I think, because, you know, as I said, some people will actually hear and have a communication audibly with people. Some people will see and gain a lot of information that way. Because I'm clairsentient, it's more to do with feeling for me. So I'm not so worried about the particular identity of different guides or communicators as I am about the sort of feeling that I get. And that, for me, is what makes it feel right. And I'm not too concerned. I mean, I've had names in the past. I don't immediately rush and go out and look on the internet and try and find out what's about them. The only time recently when I did that was when I had a reading and somebody gave me the name of an archangel that was close. And I did know absolutely nothing about them, and neither did the medium. So I went and looked it up out of interest, and it was of interest to me that the archangel concerned was to do with carrying messages and actually recording things, which fitted very well with what I was actually doing. So,
well, I can totally relate.
About that.
I can totally relate to everything. I'm a feeler. I got to feel everything out. I have research if I got some information because, you know, I just need to know, especially if I don't understand it or know of it. And you did make me laugh because I think I'm confusing you with my questions anyway. So I have to like constantly make sure, okay, what question are we on and how did I word that exactly? How, if you can remember this, most people want to know, like when they first sit, they first are sitting to develop, like they're experiencing all these different sensations and they're like, some are getting scared because, oh my God, that's very strong. Can you remember how blending felt for you? Like in the beginning, how did it feel for you?
Okay. I think sitting to blend with spirit, as I recall when it first started, it was generally a sense of peace and love and a much heightened sense of awareness and understanding beyond anything that I would normally feel in my everyday human experiences. The exception of that would be if I have the blending of a troubled or an earthbound spirit, which has happened, where blending brings a feeling of sincere regret from their action. So you're experiencing their emotion that they carry with them, and the desire they have for forgiveness and to find a way to move on. In this situation, I felt their pain, their suffering, but not in a way that felt that it was harmful to me in any way, but just in a way that illustrates their need for loving help to move on. So, yes, I think, again, the experiences can vary enormously according to the spirit.
Yeah. Now, I asked this question, and it depends on the level of trance, and if you go deep trance, do you know where you go? Some people create a room. Some people, you know, have no idea where they go. But do you know where you go when you go into trance? If you're out, you know.
I've tried very hard to experience this in terms of trying to understand where I go. As I say, I tend not to go into terribly deep trance, so I don't have so much of a problem as some people do. But when I have gone deep, to me, it's like stepping into the background to allow the communicator to step forward. And that happens when the feeling is right in terms of the blending between the two of you. I'm often aware of what's said at the time, but I wouldn't be able to tell you what was said if you asked me afterwards.
I like how you described it because you're like, you kind of take a step back. And so people can relate to that. They can understand that versus creating a room. Because there's no way I could create a room and somehow be there. Maybe I could. I mean, I don't know. I just usually try to step back.
Yeah, I think it's easy to get hung up on you've got to go to a room somewhere or a particular location. And actually, as long as you're out of the way and the trance is happening, it doesn't really matter where you go.
Yeah, it doesn't. Do you feel like, well, you know, so you kind of just answered this a little bit, but do you feel, actually you have answered, I'm at number 33. And
Okay.
do you feel a part of us remains while we are in trance?
I think when we set the intent to work with spirit through trance, it's important to set our ground rules as to what we will accept and what we won't. Because it isn't just a question of accepting whatever's thrown at you. So, for instance, I wouldn't tolerate anything which upsets or embarrasses or criticises any individual or group of individuals, or if it brought the practice of sitting for spiritual development into disrepute, I wouldn't be happy with that. As trance is an altered state of consciousness, I believe it's not possible for the medium to be completely out of it. Even in deep trance, I believe that our higher self will be monitoring what's happening and will, if necessary, ensure that nothing happens which is contrary to our own interests or to those of the people around us. And if necessary, the higher self will bring you out of the trance state. And I have been aware of that happening.
I agree. I think we could have a whole different conversation, a whole different interview just on the higher self and all these other deeper beliefs. Okay, let me ask you, and this is going to not be in here.
Okay.
I think it's important to grow spiritually, to grow and evolve and learn about you, and just be, I don't know, I just feel that more people need to evolve spiritually, to be more loving, releasing the ego, all of that. That's what I feel. And do you feel that that would be important, that somebody should actually work on that part of themselves as they seek to become a trance medium or a physical medium? Do you think that part of being spiritual and working on yourself being important?
Yeah, I mean, the image that came into my mind while you were talking is that, I mean, I view it that we can reincarnate as a spirit into a human identity, a human existence, in order to learn certain lessons. And in different areas, I've heard it described as the planet of emotions. And, you know, this, we go through so much stuff, or most people do during the course of their lives, either through their own choices or through things that are just thrown at them. And the image I got that came to me was it would be a bit like getting on a train to commute to work every day, and then coming home, having done the day's work, and gone back and you sit and watch the telly and you read a book and you go to bed and you get up the next day and you get on the train and you go to work and you do all these things, and then suddenly you realise after about 20 years that actually you've not done anything. You've not learned anything. You've not been anywhere. You've not expanded yourself as a human being. And this, to me, is a bit like what the spirit must feel if you don't do some kind of development there.
You know, I absolutely agree with you. And that just came out of nowhere. And I know that's not on the list, but I was like, oh, you know what? I need to ask this. I do agree. I feel like as you evolve and grow and you being lifting yourself up, you're able to help lift others up as well as help them understand these higher truths or these higher beliefs. But to me, I think it's kind of important as you're sitting for trance, and they're going to be able to access to some degree this higher knowledge that you have, or you're going to learn that higher knowledge. Mm-hmm. And I think the reason why I'm asking this is because I have these opportunities. I know I'm kind of going left field now, really quick. I have these opportunities to speak with other guests that incorporate this higher knowledge and higher understanding that could actually help, mediums that if they're not already diving down that path of self-awareness, deeper self-awareness, and incorporating that in these interviews that I do.
We're all different personalities and we all have different levels of competence and confidence. And I think confidence is one of the things that's really hard to generate when you first start on a spiritual development pathway. And it's people get hung up on the feeling, well, I could never be a medium, I could never stand on a platform, or I couldn't sit there and give trance in front of a group of people. And spiritual development isn't about being the best or being the most perfect or the most wonderful or the most clever orator or whatever it may be. The very first poem that I wrote, going back all those years ago to 2005, when I went on with a group meeting in Scarborough, was called God's Ministers. And it was all about that effectively, it doesn't matter whether you minister to millions or you minister to one. If you help one person on your journey through this life, then your life has been worthwhile. And it's not to worry about what you should be doing, but just to develop and let things flow as they need to.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. And you need to share that one in the group, that poem, if you can find it so easy. That's like one of your first ones that you did?
It was the first one in the big group, yes.
Oh, awesome. Okay, so sorry I'm going off left field there.
No,
34, and we're getting close to the end here. Are there signs that sitters can observe while a medium is in trance?
Yes, a number. So you could get a situation where the medium's facial appearance changes, so they could look more peaceful. You could see some overshadowing or transfiguration on the face with the mask in that way, or they could just look different to what they normally look like. The face maybe just not appear as they would normally look. The breathing may change, so they could slow down or it could speed up. the medium's heart rate might increase. And the medium's body posture might change. So, and levitation would be great, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that would be.
The energy around the medium will feel different. Because you know when you're with somebody, you understand when you sit regularly with somebody, you understand their energy and what it feels like. So it will just feel different. The voice may change somewhat, so it might be a different tone or a different pitch, but in a way we should avoid what you might describe as the ministry of silly voices, because you've got people trying to talk like some ancient Chinese or whatever. So the vocabulary used might be different, and you get there are some trance mediums I've seen who quite clearly, and I mean I've seen Rob Goodwin sit a lot because he's a personal friend. He's helped me with some of my publishing my books, and I've seen other mediums where they just become a completely different personality, and they talk completely differently to the way they would normally talk. And you could get a change in the air temperature, or you could feel breezes.
Those are good, all those signs to look out for, you know.
Yeah.
Definitely check that out. So you've actually sat with or been able to be with, did you say Rob Goodwin?
Correct, yes.
Oh man, yeah, that would be something. And you know I've interviewed him, but yeah, because when I see his videos, I'm like, whoa. But that would be different to experience in person, to feel that energy, you know?
I remember once I went to see Rob at Northampton Spiritualist Church, and I was there fairly early, so I thought, all right, he didn't know I was going. So I sat back, it's about halfway back in the church, and I'll just sit there, and I do what I usually do if I go to a spiritualist meeting. I send energy, I try and send loving energy forward to fill the room, because a lot of people come in and they'll still be talking about the same things they were talking about in the car 10, 15 minutes before I got there. And it does help, I think, the medium, if you try and put some supportive, loving energy forward. So I was just quietly doing this. And there was nobody else with me. And then the various other people come and sat all around me. And then it gets to the point where Bob usually does a talk, and then they invite questions. And this is usually the part that most mediums dread, because nobody wants to ask the first question. So I have this thing where I always think of a question when they're talking to try and just get the ball rolling. So I asked a question, and this was when Rob was in quite deep trance as well, further. And before he answered the question, he said, well, yes, thank you, sir. He said, and thank you for the loving energy you've been sending forwards. Wow. Now, nobody would have known that.
Yeah. Oh,
and
wow.
It was quite astonishing. So, I mean, this is the extent of White Feather's ability, just incredible.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah,
and the stuff that comes out, the philosophy that comes out, I mean, there's a lot of it there in books, but to feel it in person is quite magical.
Wow. Yeah. If one day I would love to sit there and actually experience this in person. And I will be there one day too.
You'd love it. You really would.
Okay. So this is a very important question because, I get members asking me, or saying, hey, I'm experiencing this, coming out of trance. Have you yourself experienced any side effects coming out of trance?
I think there are some sensible rules to adopt when you sit for trance, including not touching a medium who's in trance state. I had a friend who had this happen, and it was quite traumatic for them when they were in a deep altered state. Not making loud noises or introducing very bright lights if they're sitting in subdued lightings. Personally, I've sat on very odd occasions, come out of trance too quickly and felt quite disorientated, a bit nauseous, and certainly a bit spacey and not want to get off the chair. Unbalanced, a bit confused, but nothing worse than that. And I would say that fortunately, even those experiences are quite rare. And if there's proper supervision by an earthly trance control, as there should be, then they should be avoided by the proper procedures being followed. They will, however, help the medium recover if necessary. Because sometimes you can be a bit wobbly afterwards.
Yeah, you know what, and that's what they say. They're very nauseous, and I just kind of think that they just came out of it too fast, It's what I feel.
And you can, I sat in a trance workshop fairly early on in my development, And it was the first time I'd sat next to somebody who was in trance, who was a deep trance medium. And I sat there and I felt this energy coming in to the media, and I nearly fell off the chair. It was the sheer strength. There was no malicious intent. It was just the sheer energy, force of the energy that they felt coming into them, and I felt really, really sick.
Wow.
But it was only for a few split seconds, and then it passed.
Wow.
But yes, you can experience these things, but don't panic, Mr. Marion. You know.
Yeah, I can just imagine feeling that one. Okay, so we're now towards the last two questions, and what I like to always end with is some advice for members starting out. So is there any advice that you can give to someone starting their own circle?
Okay, so the best advice from me would be to have sat in a well-run and disciplined circle by an established medium for long enough to understand the proper processes, the procedures and the protocols involved. If this isn't possible, then advice should be sought from a good teaching medium. In that sense, if you don't know people, to go by feedback from other people and not just by the medium's own word, because a lot of people are very good at saying how good they are. Ideally, they should be able to give some written guidance, maybe even come and sit in the new circle for a while to get it going on the right lines. If neither of those is possible, then as much reading as possible around the subject. Plenty of books and articles available, and there's videos on the internet which may be helpful. There may also be people who can sit with you who have sat in other circles and have experience that they can bring to the new circle. In whatever way it's commenced, it's important to have right intent, respect, confidentiality of what is said in circle, and that's really, really important. Self-discipline, regularity, commitment, open-mindedness, and most of all, a loving and compassionate attitude to all present on both sides of the event. So, but the discipline within the circle is actually important, and I can't overemphasize the importance of confidentiality, because a lot of stuff comes out about you personally in a circle. It does.
Wow.
It just happens, and you must always respect that confidence.
Wow, that's beautiful. I actually think I need to do a post and have all this beautiful advice for people that are starting their own or forming their own circles, and just take everybody's advice and put it all into one spot. But to listen to advice, you know?
Sounds good.
So the final question, what advice can you give someone just starting out on his or her own development?
Okay, so for me, I do a lot of reading, so I would say read, and when you've done that, read more. sit, and when you've done that, sit more. Attend services at a spiritualist church or a meditation group if you can. Learn the importance of listening. Learn to let go of ego and ambition. Adopt an attitude of humility and service. Keep a journal which is dated, so you can look back and you can see the changes that happen over a period of time. Expect nothing and be grateful for whatever you get. Have an open mind. Let go of all anger and judgment. Always ask for the highest and the best communication to be brought to you. Be patient. If you use them, you may find that angel cards, trust and patience come to you regularly to start with. This happened to me for about 3 years, every week. Use what is useful for your development and discard what isn't. Your first thought is usually the most important one, and this is before your monkey brain starts to step in. Be loving, respectful and compassionate. And don't be concerned with the status of or fame of your communicator. Consider the worth of what is said or given, not who's giving it. If you have to ask yourself if something critical is worth saying, it isn't. Not all spiritual learning happens in a circle. Watch for the soul lessons going on around you in your life, particularly if you find yourself experiencing the same things over and over. It usually means you've missed something. And somebody recently used a quote which was, if you keep finding pain in areas of your life, it's usually the places where you haven't thrown enough love. Which I thought was lovely.
There, yes, yes, yes. Beautiful, beautiful. All this advice is so beautiful. And now you've inspired me to make sure to write all of this down and put it in a post, because it's completely perfect. Ray, I am so grateful to you for being on here, sharing your story, giving us your wisdom. And I'm so glad that we finally got to do this. Because, you know, I've been kind of, hey, how are you doing? Are you feeling better? And then I started feeling sick. So, you know, that's how that went. But again, so grateful to you. So what I'm going to definitely do is when Ray, I know Ray is going to be getting his books in digital format. Eventually, he's working on that. And when I get my books from Ray, I'm definitely going to share in the groups. And also know that Ray, every so often, he shares some beautiful inspired writing in the group. And you'll be able to know what I'm talking about when you see this. And I hope that you continue to do this, Ray. And maybe that first poem that the first one that you were talking about, was it the Ministers?
God's Ministers, yeah.
Yes, if you could share that, that would be wonderful.
Yes, of course.
And maybe even I'll put it in the comments as well. So, Ray, I know that we are like 5 hours, I think, ahead. You're 5 hours ahead of me, so that's definitely, what, 6:30?
Near enough, yes.
6:30. So you have a fabulous rest of your evening, and I can't wait for this interview to come out and also to see any of your future posts.
Okay. Can I just give you one little quote? And this isn't one of mine, but I thought it was just a nice thing to do when you're talking to other people about what they're going to do. When I was studying for English A-level many years ago, we had to study an author called George Bernard Shaw, and the play that we studied was called Major Barbara. And there's a quote of his in there where he says, "There is only one true morality for every man, but every man has not the same true morality." And I think, to me, this is very much the same with spirituality. So don't think you've got to fit in somebody else's box.
No, that's perfect. I love that. And you need to write that in there in the comments too. Thank you, Ray. Thank you so very much for doing it for us.
Very humbling, and thank you very much for asking me. It's very kind of you.
Okay, so you have a great night, and we will see you again, and definitely see you in the groups. And if you guys, I know this interview gets posted in a bunch of different groups. So if you haven't joined Sacred Dance or Trance, you really need to, because sometimes we have lots of great conversations going on in there outside that's not posted in all the other different groups. And that's where you'll see a lot of Ray's work too, where he shares in the group. So again, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Ray. And until we talk again, thank you.
Bless you. Thank you very much, Bethany.
Thank you.